Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the UNSW Co-op Program Business Chat, Business Careers Chat. And we're just going to leave it for a couple of minutes before we get started. As you're joining us, if you're here for the Business Career Chat with the Co-op Program, you're in the right place. Just bear with us. We'll let a few more people join and then we'll get started soon. Thanks for joining, everyone. This is the UNSW Co-op Program Business Career Chat. Just before we get started, a couple of points that you might want to know as we go through. There will be an opportunity for you to ask questions. There is a Q&A question box that you can add your questions into. And as we go through the evening, and we will add those, we will answer those towards the end of the evening. We have a few speakers tonight, so if you can pop your questions into there, we may answer them before we even come to that. I'm just going to give it one more minute before we get started, and then we will start talking all things business. Okay, we do have a few more people still joining, but we love to start things on time in the co-op program. So I'm going to get started this evening. Welcome to the UNSW Co-op Program's Business Career Chat. We are very excited to have you join us for the first of our career chats this year, 2024. And tonight we're talking all things business, and that's not a small topic. So we'll do what we can in the hour that we have. We're happy to answer all of your questions. If you have any questions as we go through, you can add them in the Q&A question box. But before we go any further, I'd like to acknowledge the Bidjigal people, who are the traditional custodians of the land that we're coming to you from in the co-op office on the Kensington campus here at UNSW, and acknowledge all Indigenous peoples and elders, past and present, who have contributed to the wealth of knowledge in business and education. And I'd also like to extend that respect to any Indigenous peoples joining us tonight. So we are really excited to have you with us, and hoping that we can manage our technology well. And seeing as that's down to me, I am going to switch to excellent. We are here at the Business Career Chat. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of an overview of the kind of things that we are going to talk about tonight. When I was in your shoes, and admittedly it is a very long time ago, but the thought of finding a career looked a little bit like this to me. There was so much out there. There's the clouds rolling. I knew there was a lot under the cloud cover, but where was it best to start? Is it really business? Was business the right thing for me? Is it math? Is it finance? Or is it even something completely out of left field, medicine or law? If it is business, what part of business is of interest to you? So how do I know what's good for me? What even is an analyst? What's a consultant? What exactly does somebody do on the finance floor? And how can I take those steps towards some of those big, exciting careers that I hear about all the time? What does a CEO even do? How do I get there? And how do I start just taking those small steps towards being where I want to be in my future? So it can feel a little daunting, but the fabulous thing is that may sound familiar, but there's some things that you can do, to help yourself get a little closer to where you want to be. The good news is, when it comes to careers, there's definitely no right or wrong. When it comes to choosing a career destination, there's multiple ways to get there. And one of the things we try to do through this Career Chat series is highlight for you how different people might have come to similar or, engage different ways in different sectors that you might be interested in. So developing a career path can take a lifetime, and that's an exciting thing. You don't have to have all of the answers right now. You don't even need to make one ultimate life-altering decision when you're going into university, no matter what your careers advisors, what your parents, or what your friends might be telling you. It is simply your first step. So my advice is to gather all of the information that you can. Think about what areas are of interest to you. Start doing your research and think about what exactly is involved in a particular industry or a particular job that might be of interest to you. It's going to be great for you to start having some conversations and to talk to some people, whether they are within your school, within your personal circle. They might be parents, they might be careers advisors, they might be part of your community church or a volunteer organization that you are part of. It's just a great idea to start sounding people out if you think they might have some information. And it's a really good idea to ask lots of questions and to think about, what you might want to know more about. There are so many ways to get to where you want to go. And if you gather all of that information and think about the things that are of interest to you and how you might gain life experience that can develop some skills to head you towards what you would like to develop in. So when you're thinking about your research, what should you consider? We strongly recommend that regardless of what you're looking at, it's a great idea to start thinking about these 4 key things. So first of all, thinking about what your talents are. There's probably some people in your life who often will tell you that you're really good at doing one thing or that you're talented in a particular area. You might feel really confident in a particular area, and that's something important to consider. So what is it that you do well? That means you've got something to bring to the table already before you get started, even in your career at all. Think about how that talent could be applied to a career. That's not always a really simple or direct understanding. It might not be clear to you how your musical talents might be applicable, but it may be a really clear thing for you to see how your talents can be applied. And then the next thing to think about is your values. What's important to you? What is it that you're really looking for when you talk about your first role, your graduate career, your ultimate career goal? Is it really important to you that you get an opportunity to be creative in your work? Is it really important to you that you're well paid? Is money really up there for you? Is being physically active something that you want to do in your everyday, or do you want to be challenged every day in your work? Do you like finding solutions to things? All of these questions, thinking about what it is that's important and how you're going to start narrowing down this huge world of career opportunities out there. Are you really keen to have a stable 9-to-5 role? Or are you really keen to have some flexible consulting hours? Is travel really important to you? Do you like working in a team, or do you like working independently? So all of those questions start coming together and giving you more of an idea of some things that you might be looking at. And then, of course, the next is, what are you interested in? What is it that you are passionate about? Not what your mother or father might be passionate about, not what your brother or your best friend is really interested in, but what is it that will get you up in the morning to go and do the study, to go to your work, to really bring that enthusiasm and energy with you into your career so that you can start shaping it in the way that you'd like to do. And the really important thing here is, if you're not exactly sure what it is, that's also okay too. You can ask yourself a couple of these questions and maybe start Googling some of the things that you've got a little bit of an interest in to see if there are any careers that could come from that interest. Where does your mind wander to? If you're standing in a queue, waiting to get into your favorite restaurant or to go to a cafe or go into a movie with your friends, what are the things that your mind starts wandering to? And being aware of those things can sometimes highlight for you where your interests are starting to come from. And then the fourth thing here is opportunity. It's sometimes bringing all of those other pieces together is fine, but where are the opportunities? What's available out there? What influences can you draw on? Who can you talk to get more information about some of the opportunities that might be available in the areas that you've highlighted? Have you ever met somebody whose role, whose job, whose career inspired you? Did you read something that really resonated with you? Maybe you read an article online. Maybe you read a blog about somebody who's doing something really interesting. Maybe you've had a casual job that's put you in touch with somebody who's done some really interesting things. Do you really want to have a chance and an opportunity in your job to travel and access new things and new areas? So all of those things combined are some of the things that you can consider, and some of the things that it's helpful to consider when there's a whole world of work out there and you're trying to narrow down what it is that you're interested in. So once you've got all of those answers to the questions, or some of the answers to those questions, that's your starting point. You'll have a lot of information to work with, but where do you go next? So again, asking lots of questions is a great way to start. You can Google, you can ask people, you can reach out to people who might have some of the experiences that you're looking for. Ask them about lessons they've learned along the way, how they got started, what it was that they focused on in school or in university to get into those places, and whether they might have some contacts that can help you find your direction. The next thing is to get some life experience. You might be involved in some sport or music. You might be involved in your community. You might do some volunteer work or have some casual jobs. All of these things help you develop skills, and all of the skills that you can develop in those less formal, perhaps more casual opportunities that are part of your life can contribute to where you take your career as well. And then if you try a variety of activities and experiences, regardless of which university you're looking at, which scholarships you might be applying for, which jobs you might be applying for, having a variety of activities and experiences where you can develop skills, where you can reference those skills, that makes your applications shine. That helps the people who are assessing those applications, or whether it's in a job or in a scholarship sense, that helps those people get to know you a little bit better. And it's, study is important, but keeping an element of that uniqueness of you is really important throughout high school. So I know if you're in year 11 or in year 12, you're probably working really hard towards, completing your high school years, and that's great and that's wonderful. But it is still really important to have that variety and of things that you're doing. Looks great on applications, keeps you a little bit grounded and a little bit sane. And it gives you something interesting to talk about in any interview that you go into. And then the last thing here is be proactive, seek out some opportunities and go for them. Don't wait for them to come to you. If you see something that sounds of interest to you that you might be able to get involved in, actually look at what kind of time commitment it is and whether you can find some time to do that. You might meet some new people who put you in touch with some new ideas, some new opportunities. And by being proactive and actually developing those core human important elements, those soft skills, which is not a great term because sometimes they're really hard, but developing those human characteristics that help you be unique builds your confidence and makes you feel more at ease in any circumstance that you're going into. So those are some of the things that you can do moving forward. We're here for the business programs and the areas of business, massive sector to be talking about. Here at UNSW, we're specifically talking about these kind of degrees. So actuarial studies, data science and decisions, or advanced maths are a couple of the degrees. The Bachelor of Commerce is one of those overarching huge degrees that has a range of different specializations in there. Within the co-op program, we're talking about accounting and business management, marketing or finance and banking, or information systems within that major. But within the sector of business, these are the kind of areas that we're talking about here tonight. And the majority of those at UNSW sit within the business faculty. The business at UNSW is a massive faculty with a whole range of programs available to you, lots of exciting awards, lots of exciting things happening. We love to talk about rankings as universities. You know, the business school is really well ranked, top 19 worldwide, which is nothing to sneeze at. In some of our areas, accounting and finance is ranked #1 in Australia, which is really awesome. And we're very proud that UNSW has been ranked the top 100 future leaders, most employable students for 5 years. 5 years running. It's a very exciting thing. And that basically for you as students coming into the university means that there's great industry connections. There's great opportunities for you to engage and experience while you're still at UNSW and while you're still studying. So breaking down that just a little further, talking about some of the careers that might be available in some of those sectors. You may have already seen some of these. Some of these may be really familiar to you. You may be interested in accounting. And of course, accountant is one of the first things that pops into your mind as you think about studying accounting. But there's a whole range of areas that you can go into, from management consulting into tax advisory, financial advisories and economists. All of those kind of areas within accounting and the business management program. Within finance and banking, investment banking is one of the first things. I think Wolf of Wall Street really kind of shone a bright light on that for some people, what that could have looked like in many years past. But the area of finance has shifted so dramatically as well. There's still areas in investment management and stockbroking, but down to things like superannuation and securities trading, and obviously in management consulting, finance background is a really strong area to go in with. Marketing is considered one of the more creative areas within the Bachelor of Commerce, and a lot of students who are creative in high school but still want to go into a business area think about marketing as one of the areas they might be interested in. And marketeers work in a whole range of areas as well. So from brand and product management or customer service, customer facing roles, product planning or social media strategies, marketing and consulting, there's again a huge range of things. And this is not an exhaustive list. It's just to give you some of the ideas of things that are out there. And all of those sit within the Bachelor of Commerce here at UNSW. Then we move into actuarial studies, which if you're into maths, if you really are motivated by numbers, you love to think about statistical modeling and that kind of thing, actuarial studies is a great place for you. And the financial services industry and insurance is certainly one of the more historical areas that actuaries worked in. But these days you'll find an actuary in most big businesses, and they work in a whole range of areas. Again, from working in health or the energy markets, working in governments, working with a whole range of data applications and data analytics, and in corporate and project finance, so in small, medium and large businesses as well. And then the last program that we've got here is data science and decisions. And that's one of the newest degrees at UNSW, and it's the one that actually sits specifically in the science faculty. It's one that doesn't sit in the business faculty, but it is a really exciting degree because the degree actually brings together 3 areas of specialization from across business and science and engineering, and has, again, a whole range of applications that traditionally might have been covered by other other areas. But as data has become so important and so huge in our world now, all of these roles that are I suppose, really specific to data and an understanding of data have come about. So from a data scientist or analyst, machine learning analysts, or, route planning for airlines, whole range of different ways that you can apply that, that's knowledge and that data science kind of background. And it's really exciting that we do have a data science and decision student with us tonight as well. So the one thing that I would like to do before I move on too far is to introduce you to the people who are living these lives, the people who have put all of this into practice in their own worlds. So we're really lucky tonight to have one of our co-op program alumni, Jason Eisner, is joining us. He was a 1992 accounting and finance alumnus of the co-op program, and he's the principal at BrandQuest. We've also got a video from one of our alumni who is a marketing alumnus as well, who is currently working at Nike. So we'll be sharing that one with you. And then we have Tom Elkovich and Femke Keywood, who are current scholars in the co-op program, both in their final year, who will also share their career journey with you a little bit to date. So I'm going to move on and hand over to Jason to share a little bit of his story with us. Thanks so much, Jason.
Okay, can you hear me?
Absolutely, we can.
Oh, okay, good, great. All right. Well, hello, everyone. I can't see you, but I thought I might just, I was asked to just give you a bit of a background of where I ended up. And I think I fully agree with Sydney that you don't know where you're going to end up. But what I will say at the beginning of this, the thing that I think is really, really important, and I'll come back at the end, is to make sure that you do something that you like. Because if you do something you like, you're going to end up, you just, it becomes not like a work, like work doesn't become work. It actually becomes fun. And that's the bit I would say to you. But so just to give you a bit of background, I don't tell people this. I grew up in Canberra, applied for this for a co-op scholarship. I was one of these people that started off in BIT, but I actually ended up in commerce and accounting and finance. I did that for 3 years. When we were doing our co-op scholarship back in 1992, which is, I know it's a long time ago, we actually did 3 years. It was a 3-year program, but we had to work over our summers because it was 4 years compressed into 3 years. So that was quite a lot of work at the time. And by the end of that degree, we were, looking to apply for jobs, and the job that I got was working for a company I think we now call Accenture. It was Anderson Consulting at the time, and it was in management consulting. I was kind of one of the first business analysts into that practice. It had been created, and what a interesting start to the world. I was pretty young at the time, and the first thing I found out was that I was literally in America on a break between university and work, and my father rang me up and said, "Hey, I've got some good news and bad news. The bad news is you've got to start work early to come back to Australia." The good news was Accenture or Anderson Consulting at the time had training programs in St. Charles in Chicago. So I was flying backwards and forwards. So I ended up going back, landing in Australia for a week, and then flying back. I started off in consulting, and consulting, you hear about that. It's a pretty great career to start to learn how to do things, because you get to work on all sorts of different things. I loved, it was hard. It was a lot of hard work. We worked hours and hours and hours, but I think you've got to be prepared to put the hard work in, because it sets you up. I think the only thing that I'd tell you, that my best example of work back then was working for the New Zealand Dairy Group. We had to go into India to find whether there would be, the New Zealand Dairy Group, they made, they make value-added milk products and so forth, and we were going in to see if there was a market in India. And that was, if I had a lot of time, I'd tell you about those stories, but it was 6 weeks on the ground in India was a really eye-opening experience, but one that, you always learn from, and still to this day. So I ended up in management consulting. My last client that I was working at was Tip Top Bakeries. I wanted to apply to business school, and when I wanted to go to the US. So I actually stepped across from management consulting into Tip Top Bakeries as their national supply chain manager. So I just want to point out to you, started off in accounting, finance, went to management consulting, ended up at Tip Top Bakeries, a consumer products company, as their national supply chain manager. I was at kind of the age of 24, running around the country, and that was a really interesting role, in that we kind of changed the way bread was delivered into Australia. Before, we started a piece of work there from Anderson, etc., but then later as managing that area, bread used to be dropped off every day into a supermarket and picked up at the end of the day, and we put in a whole lot of different things, but basically safety stock, so bread was fresher and lasted longer, and they weren't out of stock. So anyway, there was a whole lot of piece of work there. Did that for a year and a half. At the same time, applied to business school. Ended up getting into actually, I should just say the one thing that happened when I was doing my one of the catalysts to going to business school was I was working with the managing director, and I wanted to get him to approve $10,000 for something that I was looking to do. I remember being in this huge room of his office, and I was asked, I was just literally going through like spreadsheets and all the analysis. And then in the middle of my meeting, in came the sales and marketing director, and he put his hand up and said, "Hey," to the managing director, butted into my meeting, said, "Just wanted to let you know I'm about to drop $2 million of advertising. Is that okay?" Well, he didn't even say it's okay. Just wanted to let you know. And then off he went. And the managing director just said, "Yep, that's fine." And then came back to grilling me on my $10,000. So I ended up going, well, hang on, there might be something in that. And so looked to moving into marketing, and applied to business school, got into a business school called Kellogg. It's out of Chicago. It's probably the number one school in the US in terms of marketing and brand, and did my 2 years there. In America, worked on probably the first ever online supermarket out of Chicago, probably in the world back then. Then went and worked in New York for a demand strategy, another consulting company in demand strategy, and had a bit of an epiphany. And in that epiphany, we kind of said, I was flying backwards between New York and London, and I was staying in a really ritzy hotel in London. I was just married, and my wife was in New York, and I was going, hang on, I'm flying backwards and forwards, but hang on, what's happening here? And I kind of made a decision at that point to say, hey, it might be time to, maybe do my own thing so I can control my time. When you work for people, you'll find out that they control your time, especially in big corporates. So I wanted to have a bit more control. And so started to work. I went to a venture-backed startup in Manhattan, started to work there, and then came back to Australia and started up. I was in a management company, but that I set up. But then one of the things that happened when I was working in that management company, and this gets us to BrandQuest, was I was working on this company, and I was at the same company. Was a creative director from a big advertising company, and I kind of said over coffee, I said the difference between America and Australia at the time was that in America they understand marketing, in Australia they think it's advertising. And I said, well, maybe for small businesses we could put together a process to build brand and marketing for companies. And that was back in 2007. And we put, I said, what are you doing over the holiday, over the afternoon? What turned into a weekend, which turned into the end to working over the Christmas holidays. And 2 years later, we had a process that we've been applying ever since, and started BrandQuest. And since starting BrandQuest, we've worked on small companies, but large publicly listed companies, international companies all over the world, and it's, you know, I suppose the great thing about that is that, you know, you do have control of your time. So that kind of got me to where I am today. I mean, I could keep on going, but I know we're tight for time, and if you've got questions, happy to answer them.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Jason. And you're right. We do have some time for questions. So I'm just going to try and get to the next slide, which is coming. No. Technology does not want me to play. There we go. Okay. Okay, so next up, we've actually got a video from one of our alumni who is living overseas, and she is a 2010 marketing alumnus named Cynthia, who's currently working as an operations manager at Nike.
Hi, my name is Cynthia. I'm currently based in Amsterdam and I work in marketplace digital operations. My career actually started in advertising in Sydney.
Oh, Michelle, you may have accidentally stopped the video.
I know, I'm trying to fix that. I will, sorry everybody.
It was through the marketing co-op placements at Colgate-Palmolive and McDonald's that I first worked with creative and media agencies. After graduating from UNSW, I wanted to deepen my understanding of media agencies, so I took on a 6-month internship in the strategy department at OMD Australia. This led to a role in the account management team at OMD on Estee Lauder companies. For the next 5 years, I worked in media agencies on brands across a number of industries, including beauty, pharmaceuticals, and FMCG. At the end of 2018, my partner and I decided to move to Berlin to experience living and working abroad. There, I joined Europe's largest fashion e-commerce company, Zalando, where I worked first in their in-house creative agency and then transitioning into a sales and marketing consultant. After working in advertising for 8 years, I decided I wanted to try something different. This has led me to my role today, where I'm based in Amsterdam and working in digital operations for my company in online marketplaces. This role entails working with third-party vendors and partners, managing the products on the marketplace's platforms, data analytics and reporting, as well as solving any operational issues that arise. Moving abroad has been one of my biggest highlights, personally and professionally. Personally, it has been a culturally rich experience. The travel opportunities truly feel endless, and I have had the opportunity to meet and work with so many people from so many different countries. Professionally, I've expanded my experience, skill set, and transitioned into a new industry. My career advice is to remain open and embrace new opportunities. When I started my career in advertising 10 years ago, I never imagined that I would end up in e-commerce and digital operations in Europe. My co-op placements gave me exposure to agencies, which then allowed me to transfer this experience to a German e-commerce company, which in turn has led me to my role today. Thanks. Hi, my name is Cynthia. I'm currently based in Amsterdam and I work in marketplace.
Just in case you missed that first part, that was Cynthia, and she works in marketing. I'm going to hand over now to Tom Elkovich, who is a final year co-op scholar, to share a little bit about his journey in the co-op program. Thanks, Tom.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So yeah, my name's Tom. I'm currently a final year accounting and business management scholar, doing a Bachelor of Commerce in both finance and accounting. Firstly, I just wanted to give a shout out to all of you joining the call. I know there's a bunch of other things that you could be doing on your Tuesday night, and I think it's a big testament to all of you to set this time aside to hear us talk and to get insight into what your future career might look like. So I think you all deserve a pat on the back for that. To give a bit of a view on how I thought about things when I was in your position, I had an initial spark in terms of, business and economics. I really enjoyed business studies and economics when I was doing the HSC. And then, didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. And I think nobody does, and that's perfectly fine. So I purely went about it from the lens of optionality maximizing, which led me to apply to co-op and then apply specifically to the accounting and business management stream. I think there are a few general benefits across the board with the co-op program. That is, number one, diversity. You get a ton of diversity in your experience base, which I think is tremendously beneficial. You have your optionality as well. So, you can essentially pick what you want to do, and getting the leg up with your first 2 or 3 internships gives you a lot of bargaining power within the competitive marketplace that is graduate recruiting. And it also shows you what you like and what you don't like. And I think that is extremely important. A lot of people might go, oh, no, I don't want to do that. I wouldn't even consider trying that sort of career. But I think trying it before you make a decision is extremely valuable. To go through my journey, I know there's quite a bit on the page, and I managed to fit quite a bit in throughout my experience. But I started off at Optus as my first internship within the financial operations team. So this was very much accounting focused, journal entries, a lot of developing the grassroots knowledge around financial analysis and financial reporting, which was extremely, extremely important. When I reflect on that kind of role, I really enjoyed the analytical aspect, but probably didn't enjoy as much, the month-end reporting, repetitive nature of the job. And by being proactive and spending time in a range of other teams, I got exposure to the more commercial evaluations, commercial decision-making side of Optus as a corporation. And alongside other extracurricular endeavors led me to experience, what is investment banking. And I ended up doing, one internship, short winter internship with Moelis in investment banking, and got, my first taste of corporate advisory. But then, through the co-op program and tapping into their network, spent some time with JP Morgan within their metals and mining investment banking team, and got exposure to large scale M&A, ASX 100 clients, and, really honed a variety of, financial analysis skills, which I think was, invaluable in my future internships. I think at this point, it was a pretty, interesting juncture, because in my mind, I said, this is exactly what I want to do. But I have 2 more internships that, they're going to be new, and I don't know if I will enjoy them. But they were probably the 2 best internships that I did out of my entire internship program, purely from the perspective of diversity. I got to spend time at Coke and really put myself outside my comfort zone, looking at the value chain, getting put directly in front of the CFO, and having to defend, value propositions around launching new products. And then going over to Westpac and spending that time at Westpac actually helped me construct a vision of, when I go back into investment banking, what team do I want to go into? And I worked with, some of the smartest people I have over that time at Westpac, delving into, from a modeling perspective, one of Australia's most complex business models. And that led me over the summer to spend time with Goldman Sachs in their financial institutions group investment banking team. And I got to, work on a range of different transactions, buy side, sell side, anti-rate advisory, capital markets. And I think what was extremely interesting is, especially about investment banking in totality, is you're so young and you're a junior in your career, and you're sitting there in front of, some of the, top ASX 100 CEOs and putting a piece of analysis towards them. So I thought that was tremendous in terms of experience. Stepping over, I'm now spending some time with Bain Capital within their private credit and special situations. And that internship at Optus and that internship at Coke, and the knowledge that I gained from that around those 2 industries have again been tremendously invaluable. We're looking at companies with similar business profiles, similar nuances around terminology. And without that diversity, I probably wouldn't have the leg up I do now in terms of actually being able to look at those companies and do in-depth analysis and whatnot. I think overall, a massive learning that I took is diversity is extremely important. And that's exactly what co-op gives you. But also coming into the co-op program, you have so much at your fingertips. And if you are fortunate to be in the position where you get any of the scholarships, it's to, make use of the co-op office, make use of, the partner networks with the different organizations. These are huge, massive, big corporates. And not many people get this kind of experience. So, be grateful, and hopefully some of you on this call will be able to experience what I did.
Thanks, Tom. And if anyone else feels a little dizzy looking at just how much Tom has fit into his time at university, do not feel alone in that feeling. We also need to take a breath after hearing all of Tom's insights. Thanks, Tom. Next, we're going to hand over to Femke, who is in that Data Science and Decisions Co-op program. So Femke, I'm going to hand over to you if you want to share a little bit of your journey with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Hi, I'm Femke. As Michelle said, I'm studying a Bachelor of Data Science and Decisions. And I have to say, Thomas's journey was a bit, even for me, I've had a much more traditional co-op experience. Usually co-op involves 3 placements, and those are the 3 placements I did, and I didn't do any extras. So I started off at ASIC. I went to CBA for 6 months and then Optus for 6 months, and I'm actually working there part-time 2 days a week currently. And next year I'll be going to Quantium, which is a consulting company specifically focusing on data science as a grad. So that's kind of like my journey outline. But I wanted to give a little bit of an insight into what data science actually is, because at least from my perspective, I didn't even know what that was in year 11. I kind of discovered it in year 12 while I was doing science extension as a subject. And there was a little bit of talk about it in the syllabus. And I started to do a bit of research. And honestly, I probably didn't know what I was getting myself into at the time. But looking back, I can now probably give you a decent answer as to what data science is. And the answer is it looks very different depending on what industry you're in. But generally people will, contest to the fact that it's generally an intersection between these 3 areas. So the theory is rooted in maths and statistics. You do a lot of modeling and so on. You apply that using programming. So you need to have a good computer science kind of foundation there. And then this other part, domain specific knowledge, is why it's so different depending on what industry you're in, because different industries will ask different questions and so on. So that domain specific knowledge is usually something you learn on the job, but in the data science degree itself, it usually looks like business courses like economics. We do a lot of that as well. So what do I mean about domain specific knowledge? Essentially, data science helps businesses inform their strategic decisions. So for instance, companies like Combank and Optus have large customer bases, right? And they might want to ask questions about how likely is a customer going to churn? So by churn, I mean leave the company to someone else, say Telstra. And data science techniques can actually help us work out a probability score for each customer, how likely they are to churn. And then marketing teams can then take that away and target those really high risk customers for their campaigns. So that's like a rooted example. But then I guess another example I can give, Optus, it's a telco. So some data science work that they do there as well is around the network infrastructure. Where should we be placing our cell towers next? And we can make models to answer those questions as well. Besides from that, more about my career, I've had a lot of highlights so far, and I feel like this comes from, what all of us have been saying. Put your hand up for opportunities, put yourself out there. And the biggest lesson I've learned is you have your circle of comfort zone, and it's always about just pushing a little bit beyond that. So I've been fortunate enough to be involved with a lot of student societies, particularly the Data Science Society, which I'm a president of this year. So that's been really great, getting involved in the student side. And I would really recommend to people to get involved in student societies for a number of reasons, even just for networking in itself, because at the end of the day, all these people are going to be working probably in the same companies as you, or at least nearby in a sense. And then one really big opportunity that I had was I actually came back from the US about 3 weeks ago because I attended a data and AI summit in San Francisco with my Optus team. And that resulted from us winning a hackathon last year focusing on large language models. So think of things like ChatGPT. We were building some in-house large language models at Optus for our business use case. And as a result, we won that hackathon and we got to fly out to San Francisco. And it was my first time in the US. I would never have imagined that I would even get an opportunity like that. So it just goes to show, you know, put your hand up for things. You never know where you're going to end up. Yeah, so I think I'll leave it there. But if anyone has any questions later on, feel free. And I'll hand back to Michelle.
Thanks, Femke. Really appreciate it. It is certainly quite a unique and different world in data science, and it's one that, you know, is always emerging and changing as well. So it's great to have your personal insight on how those sectors intersect. So we are from the co-op program, and although tonight our main aim is to give you a really kind of large, broad overview of business and business careers, I wouldn't be me if I didn't take the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about what co-op is and what we can offer you. So if you are new to it, if you've not heard about it before, Co-op is a career development scholarship here at the University of New South Wales. There's a whole range of program streams, but within the business sectors, within the business world, and the ones that we're talking about tonight are the ones that we covered off a little bit earlier. We offer students up between 15 and 18 months of industry training, depending on which of the program streams that you're in. And that is with 3 sponsor companies. So 3 industry training placements that are placed throughout your degree, so that you are learning technical skills here at university, taking them out into industry, putting them into practice, and then coming back to university and building on the skills and sometimes informing your studies with the practical experience that you've had over the course of your degree. And the majority, the scholarship that is associated with it is $21,600 per year for 4 years. So you're receiving that scholarship as a stipend, whether you're studying or whether you're on industry placement. But the really exciting thing, and in addition to the industry placements, and it's always nice to have money and scholarship coming in, but the really exciting thing that we are able to offer you with the co-op program is that network and the opportunity to build on and develop further the potential leadership skills, teamwork skills, communication skills that you're most likely already beginning to develop in high school. And that's the kind of things that we want to see in your co-op application as well. It really is a community of students, and it's an opportunity for you to develop the skills that you've already started, identify some new ones, build some new ones, practice what you're learning at university in industry, and meet and engage with and, you know, build friendships and a network with some of the most motivated students that you're likely to come across. And those students will often become some of the friends that you take with you, that you travel with, that you spend, you know, your professional and your personal lives with moving forward into life. And hang around on, you know, wonderful places on campus. So the applications for the co-op program scholarship are currently open. We close those the 30th of September. So there is oodles of time. You're heading into some holidays right now, some school holidays. Great time to start an application, at least register. And that way you'll actually get reminders of the kind of things that you should be doing. And we can, you know, you can contact us with any other questions that you might have as you go through your application. But we are absolutely here to answer your questions tonight. So if you have some questions specifically for the panel, please feel free to highlight that in the question box. But I might just bring up that question box and maybe stop. Oops, now I've gone too far. Okay, we're just going to stop sharing the screen
Maybe Michelle, while you do that, I can start looking at some of the questions.
Beautiful. Thanks, Karen. That would be wonderful.
So maybe just, I think one of the questions that is coming up a lot is just around, so yes, all 3 sessions this week will be recorded. For everyone that's registered for the event, you will receive a link, and then they will also be sent to careers advisors, and then they will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel. So that should be coming over the next few weeks. Oh, questions are coming thick and fast, but I did remember that there was one for Femke. Which major did you do?
Sure. So in the data science degree, there's 3 majors: business, computational, and quantitative. Usually a lot of people start off in quantitative because that's like the math grounded one. And from high school, you know, all we really know is maths. I've ended up in computational, but it's been a lot of changing. And to be honest, you don't really need to make the decision until like maybe halfway through your 2nd year on declaring your stream. So don't feel like you're stuck in it once you start doing it. You've had plenty of time to work that out. Generally, computational and quantitative are the most popular. I don't know many people doing the business major. But yeah, as I said, you have heaps of time to work it out. I wouldn't personally recommend one because that's totally up to you and what you're interested in. I do feel like having a programming foundation is pretty important. Generally, you will be doing this after you finish uni, so computational is pretty handy in that way. But honestly, all of them kind of set you up with a good foundation. So that's what I'd say there.
Perfect. Thanks, Femke. Maybe one for Michelle. What are the criteria for the scholarship, and what is the weighting of the different criteria?
Waiting. Thank you. So the criteria for the scholarship is we want students who are interested, who have a little bit of knowledge about the area that they're applying for. So when you're applying for co-op, you're not applying for a commerce co-op, you're applying for a specific stream. So that might be finance and banking, it might be accounting, it might be marketing. So in your application, you're going to want to actually weave in some of the reasons that you're interested in one or more of those areas. It's okay not to say, I absolutely know that I love this specific thing, and this specific thing. We don't expect you to have all of the answers, but because your program and the industry placements that you are going to do and the interview that you will have for the scholarship will be based in the stream that you're applying for and that the scholarship's in. In terms of the weighting, we look at the written application to invite you to an interview. Once you've been invited to an interview, we are assessing on the basis of that interview, your interview performance, I suppose. The interviews are a conversation with industry and academics and the co-op program team. So it's not, we're not going to get you to do technical, statistical modeling in an interview. It's a way for us to get to know you and work out whether this is the right fit for you, whether the co-op program and the structure that we have is a good fit for you. And then I think the other part that you need to be aware of is there is an academic component. We are looking for people who can balance their academics and extracurriculars whilst in high school, because that really leads us to believe you can balance your academics and also industry placements when you're a co-op scholar. So the minimum ATAR for co-op, we do consider EAS, so Educational Accessibility Scheme. So the minimum ATAR is a 96, but if you're ruling yourself out because you're not confident that you'll get a 96, then you're really doing yourself, you're really not doing yourself any favors. So if it's of interest to you, if the program's of interest to you, then you should absolutely be applying so that we can offer you an interview and get you along and you can have an even bit further of a conversation. Does that, hopefully that answers it.
Thank you, Michelle. A question for Tom. Did you find that your accounting studies were fundamental within the finance world and even in investment banking?
Yeah, most definitely. And to just give you insight into conversations that I've had with numerous analysts at, both JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, it's if a lot of them could go back to uni and study more of one discipline, it would be accounting. And I remember the old head of co-op, Kay, she used to always talk about this, and she, I didn't necessarily believe her at the start, but she could not have been more right. yeah, it's absolutely fundamental. Even over summer when I was at Goldman, I sat down and spoke with an associate to explain him through AASB 16 reconciliation, which is something that I learned, both in accounting studies at uni, but then also in some of the accounting internships. So I think, if you are doing finance and banking as a co-op scholar, and you have the optionality to take a double major in accounting, if that's something that you're considering, and I would say most definitely there's a ton of incremental value upside in doing something like that.
Great, thank you. I'm scrolling through lots of questions. Maybe one for Tom and Femke as well, because I think there are some questions around what kind of questions you may get asked in a co-op interview. If you guys remember what some of the questions you were asked, that would be helpful.
Thomas, do you remember?
Yeah, I have one, and it's pretty high level. It was just, why are you interested in accounting? And why do you see yourself studying this career path, or studying this path, and why do you want to try this career? And I still remember my answer. I was like, I searched up what is accounting on Google, and it was like, accounting is the language of business. And I was like, I'm going to use that. And I said it, and whoever interviewed me at the time was like, yes, that is it. That is exactly what accounting is. So I understood to a pretty high level, but as I said, like, when I thought about it, it was just more so optionality maximizing, and I knew that accounting underpins all the decision making within business. So that was kind of my high level reason for wanting to do accounting, and I think that resonated with the interviewer as well. So I'd just say, like, obviously know the discipline that you're getting into, and you'll probably be asked your motivation around why you're going for that specific stream, and I think that's expected.
And usually you have industry sponsors sitting in the meetings as well, or the interviews, and they have your application that you've answered questions to and so on, and your preferences. So for instance, at the time I was still considering of doing medicine, so I was asked why data science and not medicine. Also I was asked some weird, like, kind of thought-provoking questions, like, how many chairs do you think there are in the world? I feel like maybe that was more for data science, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's generally, like, as Tom was saying, motivational based. Also, they might ask you some sort of like behavioral questions around how you would handle particular situations, or give an example of a time when you show teamwork or leadership. Generally, because you are still in high school, they're not going to ask you all these technical questions because you don't have that foundational knowledge yet. They just want to know you and your personality and your working style, and if that kind of fits with what they're looking for in industry as well. So yeah, that's what I would say.
No, great, thank you both. I know you just put yourself on mute, Michelle, but I am going to come back to you. This is a popular question, and it is something that we get across all the sessions and every year, but how many co-op opportunities or positions are available per year?
And that's a fun one, guys, specifically because Karen is the industry partner in the business program. So she loves throwing that one to me. The number of scholarships across the co-op program is dependent on the number of sponsorships that we get in specific streams each year. So the fantastic thing for any scholar coming into the program is knowing that the industry partners have signed on for your cohort in your year because they want to support students coming through. So although it means we can't give you an exact number, we usually have around 80 students coming through the program each year. That does vary within the business streams. I'd say probably around, I'm looking a little bit at Karen here, but I think we're probably around the 25 to 30 mark across the different program streams. That could skyrocket. This year perhaps there's a really huge draw. So the one thing I will say is it's cliche, but you cannot be considered for a scholarship you don't apply for. One of those scholarships cannot go to you if we don't have an application from you. And each time that we're interviewing, yes, we have core components that we're looking for from a co-op perspective, and industry has some core components that they're looking for, but industry is changing. And so there is no one co-op scholar that we're trying to find. We're trying to find a cohort of diverse students that respond to the variety of industry partners that we have and the way industry is changing as well. So we have scholarships. You should apply. How many? We will absolutely let you know by the time you're having an interview, how many there are in your specific stream.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. I did pass to you only so then I could sift through the Q&A, but I will stick with you. Another
Yes.
popular question we do get is, does the co-op scholarship support double degrees?
So co-op has the flexibility to support you in a double degree once you are in the program, if the double exists. Now, you're coming into a co-op program on a single degree, and that's for a couple of reasons. Number one, the program structure. The program is quite structured, and the timing of the industry placements is set. So whether you're in a single degree or do end up in a double degree, the timing of when you're doing those industry placements is already outlined, and you can actually see when you would be on those industry placements today if you wanted to have a look. For students who are interested in doing a double degree, what you would do is have a conversation with the co-op program. Tell us a little bit about what that double is, why you're interested in it, and then we look at how those degrees fit together. And, you know, whether it's actually the best way for you to end up where you want to be by doing it that way. So there is absolutely a possibility. We have a number of students who are in double degrees now, but every student coming into the program is starting in a single degree.
Perfect. Coming back to me, and I'm still scrolling through the questions, but there was a question here that I'm happy to answer. So the question was, if I were to apply for various scholarships within UNSW Co-op, would that make me look desperate, just in terms of application? There is sort of a bit more to that sort of question, but I thought I would just answer it. So you do get up to 3 preferences when you're doing your co-op application. I think nope, that would not make you look desperate. We have lots of students who apply and put up to the 3 preferences. I think what I would recommend in that circumstance is that you show why you're passionate across those 3 program streams. Some of them can overlap, so there is that sort of support across those different streams, but you can end up in different places and start from the sort of same foundation. So I think if you are putting up to 3, I would definitely suggest showing us why you're passionate across all 3. Michelle, have I missed anything there?
Yeah, the only other thing I'd probably add is, within the world of commerce, within the world of business, some of these streams, you can do as double majors. So you could be in a marketing co-op and have an accounting, as your second major. You could be in a finance co-op and have marketing as your second major, information systems as your second major. So, all of those sorts of things are possible, but also areas like fintech are, absolutely exploding in industry. So if you are looking at applying for diverse programs as well, if you're able to kind of articulate why it is you're interested in programs that are seemingly on paper quite different, then that's something that you should be highlighting in there as well.
Back to Michelle. To apply for a business co-op, did you need to study business or economics in high school?
Absolutely not. If you have, it gives you a little bit more background on perhaps why you're interested in it or where that interest has been sparked from. But I certainly know that there are a number of schools that do not have those subjects. My school certainly didn't. And I think what's if you've had those opportunities, then great. But if you haven't had those subjects at school, how is it that you've found these areas, and why is it that they're of interest to you? What have you been able to engage with, or where have you been able to source some information from that's really highlighted for you why they're of interest? That's what you're going to be putting in your application. So don't worry if your school doesn't have, or you haven't taken those specific courses. That is certainly something that is in your application, the subjects that you've taken, but that's certainly not the biggest part of what we're looking at in your application.
Thank you, Michelle. Another question is it necessary to list the co-op program as our first preference on UAC to be considered?
Sure. This is absolutely not a priority for us. We do want to see that you're genuine in the area of interest that you're saying that you're applying for co-op in. So Femke's example there of not really knowing what she wanted to do, but having medicine and also data science, they are very different areas. So for us, we probably wanted to see that data science was at least in the preferences, but by asking a question in the interview, we're able to understand a little bit more about why that might not have been the case. At the time that you're applying, at the time that you're doing your interview, if it's not your top preference, that's no drama. When we make you an offer of the scholarship and you accept the scholarship, it's at that point that you need to make sure that you can accept the degree that allows you to start in the scholarship. So that's where it becomes important. But we're absolutely still considering you for an interview and still considering you for the scholarship if it's not in your first preference point.
Thank you, Michelle. We have a Gateway specific question. So if we apply through Gateway, are the questions the 3 Gateway questions or the co-op ones?
The questions that I'm referring to are the co-op application questions. So if you're from a Gateway school, you're applying to UNSW via the Gateway admissions pathway, your co-op application is a separate application. So whether you're at a Gateway school or not at a Gateway school, you are applying for the co-op program through the online co-op application. If you're at a Gateway school, we know those schools. We are going to take that into consideration in assessment of your application. But your Gateway application portal, apologies for those who aren't Gateway students, but your Gateway pathway application is not relevant for your co-op scholarship application. I hope that makes sense to the person asking that question.
Thank you, Michelle. So there is a question here which I'm happy to answer, just in terms of, I guess, the differences between the finance and banking and accounting and business management streams. Be kind, because this is my first year sort of taking over those streams. But I would suggest maybe looking on our website, just in terms of more information about the differences of those streams. There's also some sample study outlines there just around the courses that you will have to do. From, I guess, a program perspective, it kind of links to another question here, is just around what are the requirements in terms of GPA or WAM or marks that you need to meet. So if you are successful for a co-op scholarship, you do, for all streams except finance and banking, you do need to maintain a credit minimum across all courses, and WAM for finance and banking, it is a higher requirement of a distinction. So credit is 65, distinction is 75. I'm just scrolling just to see what else. Maybe just to clarify, maybe on the Gateway point, Michelle, can students do both Gateway and co-op?
So you can absolutely apply via both portals, via both pathways. From a co-op perspective, you would need to come into the degree that's relevant for the scholarship that you're accepting. And we take the Gateway consideration for co-op does sit separately, but you can absolutely be applying for the Gateway pathway. And in fact, we really encourage you to do that, so that, and the same goes for students who are applying for co-op. And we can't guarantee that everyone who applies gets the scholarship. Sadly, we don't have that many scholarships each year. So you should absolutely be applying for or considering the non-co-op degree at UNSW if you don't get the co-op program scholarship. So having a safety net or having an alternate option is a very, very smart idea.
Great, thank you. I might, there is a question there, but I might twist the question a bit. But for Femke, what maybe advice would you have for students on how they can make their application stand out?
Ooh, really good question. I think it comes back to Michelle's point about, diversity and also your extracurricular activities, in the sense that, they want to see what is unique about you, what's different from others. Like, everyone's studying HSC subjects and so on. And the academic parts are obviously very important. Take it from me, because I studied so much in year 12, probably too much. But I think kind of honing in on what makes you you, like your hobbies, what you're interested in, what you do in your spare time, is really important, and they like to see that. So whether you're playing sports or playing musical instruments, or even, I don't know, you have some particular unique hobby in some other area, that's what really makes you stand out. So that's what I would say there. And you have heaps of opportunity with the questions that they ask you in the application and then in interviews as well to really highlight that. So yeah, try and work on those aspects. Make sure you have a life outside of study. That's probably my advice.
Great, thank you. We have an extra question here, which I'm also happy to answer because it does relate to actuarial studies. So what would actuarial studies entail, and what does Co-op focus on, and what are the main pros and cons of doing it? I think from my personal experience as someone who's not an actuary, in terms of, I guess, the subjects that are covered, I would again suggest looking at the sample study outline on our website. In terms of our sponsor companies, there is sort of a good mix of corporate and government and consulting in terms of where you will do your placements. I think definitely a pro of it is that it's a very close-knit community. So a lot of our alumni are in our sponsor companies, and a lot of our Co-op scholars end up working for sponsor companies. There's that sort of focus on insurance, superannuation, but a big part of what Co-op scholars do that maybe is a bit different to non-Co-op actuarial students is that you will also do your part 2, or you do your part 1s, but also some of your part 2 qualifications during university as well, which is just some extra study there to become qualified. I might also pop back to Michelle. So the question is, with regards to the Co-op Commerce stream, how different is it to the normal stream? And then is it the same during the first year and then develops into industry placements in the second year? Just as an opportunity to sell Co-op a bit more.
Absolutely. So the degree for the Bachelor of Commerce and the degree for the Bachelor of Commerce Co-op are identical. The core units, the elective subjects, the specializations that you can do are identical. You are for all intents and purposes, a UNSW Commerce student. However, we have the structure of Co-op and the industry placements built into your degree. So you're graduating from a 4-year degree in the Bachelor of Commerce, and your industry placements are 4 credit. And there are learning outcomes and course outcomes that are associated with your industry placements as well. So effectively, yes, your first year is identical. We kind of encourage you to take those first year courses, your integrated first year, in a particular pattern, because that gives you the opportunity to, see, like, I suppose, develop through those subjects in a way that's going to set you up well for your first industry placement, because your first industry placement for a lot of the programs in the commerce streams are in the first part of your second year. So you've only got 1 year of study under your belt. So we kind of give you a sample study outline that brings together those subjects and highlights when the best timing for you to do them is, so that you maximize the learning from those subjects rather than just ticking the boxes of them. But yes, identical in terms of the degree. Yes.
Perfect. I might also just add, in terms of like Co-op and what it can provide, it was sort of all those points that Michelle highlighted before, but a big sort of focus for us is around that leadership and professional development, so that by the time you graduate, you're well-rounded and ready to hit the ground running. Maybe just another quick question, because it does come up quite often, for Michelle. How many Co-op applications do we typically receive?
So the application numbers again varies, because sometimes students rule themselves out for all sorts of crazy reasons, but between 800 and 1,000 is probably the number of applications that we get to review each year. That's, if you bring that down from about, let's say it's around 1,000, we probably offer about 350 or so interviews. And then, the numbers that are coming through. So it's kind of a third. I don't know how to say any more strongly. We can only consider you if you put in an application. The number of people around you who are applying is entirely irrelevant. We will assess your application on the basis of the application that you submit. And just on that point, I know generative AI is shiny, bright, and exciting, but we really, really want to get to know you as an individual. And when we are interviewing you, that is the person that is going to be in the room. So I really encourage you to take some time, actually, take some time to formulate your responses. Actually start your application early. Don't leave it to the 27th of September to start your application. Give yourself some time to review and reflect and think, okay, have I actually included all the things I want to there? We don't give you a lot of space. You do have to be concise. That's a skill as well. But as Femke said, you have an opportunity to expand on those responses in your interviews as well. And now we also have the video snapshot, which is just another part of the application that gives us a chance to see the real you behind the words. So really encourage you to not worry about how many applications we get through. We can only assess yours if you submit it.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. I think there are a few quick questions here just around how long should your application be. There are character limits to all of our questions, which you should see on either our website or as you're sort of going through the questions. How long do interviews last? They typically last 30 minutes. So just some quick questions that I think I can quickly tick off.
I think there was one there, Karen, about marketing particularly, and because we've got Jason on the line still, I think it was something around does marketing involve strong presentation and public speaking skills? And given you're not just a marketeer, but also a business owner and somebody who's shaped their career in such an interesting way, Jason, I'm really interested to hear your response to that one. Does marketing require strong presentation and public speaking skills?
I think interesting question. So I cut out there for a second. I hope you can hear me, but maybe my internet connection has gone unstable. The answer is, I think all business requires strong presentation skills. It's something that you co-op degree. I don't know if you can hear me, but I certainly remember even all the way back to when I was there's like all the way back there's plenty of opportunities at university to not only perfect that, but to become better at that. I will say one more thing that is probably really important, and I list the better listener you are, the better you're at presenting, and I just think that you have to be it's so important, because by listening, you listen to everybody else. Everybody else is talking. Let's just listen to who you really, really like, and copy them, and you'll probably in that case. It's the soft skills, but those soft skills are really, really important. So, and in marketing and branding, the only last thing I would say is that, again, if you're passionate about something, you're probably going to be a good presenter. I can't say it really helps, but passion is so important in doing it. So really, really choose something that you like, or find something that you like. That I can't explain how important that is. Don't do just something because somebody told you to do it, because that pays more money. Do something that you love. If you love something, you'll end up getting all the money you need, and you'll have fun doing it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Jason. We could hear you. Fantastic advice. Just on that point of listening, definitely in any role that you go into in the business world, it's a powerful skill to listen. Absolutely. But if we even just bring it back to your co-op application, in your interviews, make sure you listen to the question that you are being asked. This is a super, super secret hot tip, guys. A lot of students will prepare for an interview on the basis of what they think they are going to be asked. And as a result, sometimes we ask a question and the response that comes back doesn't actually answer the question. They haven't listened to the question. So it's nerve-wracking when you're in any kind of interview space. I still hate it. I'm this old and I still can't stand any kind of interview situation. But if you actually listen to the question that's being asked, you will give a far better and a far more valuable response than if you assume from the first few words that you hear or from something that you've prepared, how that question is going to go. So yes, thanks, Jason. Listening is a super strong skill to be bringing along with those presentation skills as well. So guys, I will just flag, we're actually at 20 minutes past 7, which is, we've run over time, and I apologize to our presenters. Unfortunately, Tom had to drop off and head back to his crazy world of jamming everything in while he's still a student and doing more placements. Karen, was there anything else in there that you think we aren't able to respond, we need to respond to now, or could we send some responses in the follow-up?
I think we can definitely just send it in the follow-up. We'll send all of this information. We'll send some of the responses to maybe some very common questions that we receive. And then even if after that, if any of you do have any extra questions, we will include just some contact details that you can always just reach out to and just shoot us an email or give us a call if you have any extra questions.
Beautiful. Okay, I can also just share, if you haven't been onto our website, there's a huge range of resources available to you there. There's a whole list of FAQs, which are genuinely our frequently asked questions. So they probably answer a lot that you have. Check those out. As Karen said, you can email us, you can call us, follow us on the social medias if you haven't already. The Co-op Socials channel is actually run by Co-op Scholars as well. So the content gives you a bit more of an insight into what Co-op Scholars do and live and breathe while they're in the program. But I just want to say finally, thank you so much, Jason, for your time tonight, and Femke and Tom in absentia. We really appreciate the insights because you're living the dream that, these students might be aspiring to. So really appreciate your time, and best of luck to all of the students who are navigating the huge amount of information that you have. We really hope that we see an application from you for the co-op program if this is something that you're interested in. Thanks so much, everyone. This recording will be made available to you, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Good night.